The year is 2024, and no, it is not too late to get into Starcraft 2. Even if you've never played before, even if you haven't played since Heart of the Swarm or Wings of Liberty, or even you're just a casual Starcraft 2 tournament watcher, no, it is not too late. We had a major balance change in 2023. The pro scene is alive and well with top players from Europe, Asia, and even the Americas, and plenty of live events with DreamHack Atlanta, IEM Katowice, and the newly announced DreamHack Dallas on the calendar for 2024. No, it is not too late. And this guide will help get you started by explaining in detail every Terran unit, ability, and building. No, this is not a build order guide, but if you'd like one, leave a comment below. I'll see if I can get to it, what kind of build order you'd like. And yes, I'm recording this in a hotel. I'm a full-time cargo pilot, and we'll be making SC2 content and Stormgate content this year when it comes out while I'm on layovers. So yes, I know it's not great lighting, but this is the setup I've got for now. Like, follow, subscribe, and watch out for the Zerg and Protoss version of this video. But this is Every Unit Explained Terran Edition. Enjoy. Welcome to Every Unit Explained Terran Edition. I am Prometheum, and here we go. As you can see, we are 18 minutes into this game. This is just a normal ladder map that I just built all the buildings and built all the units. I didn't upgrade anything. We'll go through that and every single upgrade as we go. Let's send these guys down here. All right, every unit, every building, every ability. When you first start out, all you're going to have is a command center and a handful of SCVs. They're going to go to building. The first thing you're going to build is a supply depot, usually at the ramp. The supply depot allows your supply to go up. That'll be the bottom number on this in the upper right. I'm at 144 supply out of 200. A supply depot will give you 8 additional supply. If you are like 14 out of 14 supply, you will not be able to build any more units until you build a supply depot. They're also useful because they can be used to build walls that drop and lower to let your units in and out and block enemy units from coming in. I built a nice supply depot wall out here as well. All right, next thing you're going to build is typically a barracks right here to add onto the wall. And out of the barracks comes Marines, Reapers, Marauders, and Ghosts. All right, this barracks has a reactor on it, which allows you to build 2 Marines at once or 2 Reapers at once. And this barracks has a tech lab on it, which allows you to build Marauders one at a time, or Ghosts one at a time, and then also Marines and Reapers. But also the tech lab allows you to upgrade units from the barracks. So key upgrades in Terran are Stim, which allows Marines and Marauders to use Stim pack ability, causes damage to the unit, but it increases their attack speed and movement speed for a short time. So it does take away some hit points from both the Marine and the Marauder, but if you pair it with Medivacs from the Starport right here, you know, that loss of life is negligible and will be replaced. So, all right, let's start with Marines. Here's your most basic unit in the Terran infantry. It can shoot ground and it can shoot air for 6 damage. Has a range of 5, and like I said, shoots air and ground. By itself, not a great unit. It's 45 health and only does 6 damage. But once it has Stim and about like 20 Marines and a bunch of Medivacs and tanks to support it, a lot of Marines and a lot of bio are excellent. Very, very nice. Very nice. Like I said, I did not upgrade anything, but now I will. I'll upgrade Stim right here, and our Marines and Marauders will get that boost when we use that Stim pack ability. Injures the Marines for 10 health And I believe the Marauders 20 health. Yes, 20 health against the Marauder, because the Marauder is 125 hit points and a Marine is only 45. So there you go. There's Marines, and let's just go into Marauders right away as well. All right, let's look at these unit attributes a little bit. If you look at the Marine, he is light and biological. If you look at a Marauder, he is armored and biological. And let's just pick a tank out here. He is armored and mechanical. These unit attributes will tell you what they are good and not good against, what counters them. So for light units, banelings do a lot of damage to light units. So banelings, very scary if you got a bunch of Marines. Banelings are kind of scary. Also Colossus. Colossus do bonus damage to light units. So, you know, pick your fights carefully. All right. Like I said, Marines can shoot ground and air units. Marauders, however, can only shoot ground. They can only do ground-to-ground units, and they do bonus damage to armored units. So 10 damage to every unit, and then 20 damage to armored units, like tanks and immortals and ultralisks against Zerg. So they're really good if you... And also every building is armored, so Marauders can take down buildings fairly quickly. Not bad at all. Marauder. Okay, moving on. We've got Reapers. Typically the first unit out of a Terran build order, it very, very commonly is a Reaper, because a Reaper is so good at scouting. They can jump up and down cliffs. They are fairly fast. They can outrun Zerglings, but not Zerglings with the speed upgrade. So usually when the speed upgrade is completed, you're kind of done. Their attack does not do a lot of damage, but like I said, they're great for scouting. They can jump up the cliffs, get a quick scout, see what's going on, and they do have a special ability to throw a KD8 charge grenade. Only does 5 damage, thanks Beyond, and it'll knock back nearby units. So, boom, neat little grenade. So if you're being chased by a bunch of Zerglings, or if you're surrounded by a bunch of probes, you can throw that grenade and escape. But pretty cool unit, Reapers, awesome. And lastly, out of the barracks are ghosts. Now, ghosts are a very expensive unit. You'll need a lot of gas, and you'll also need a Ghost Academy where you can upgrade Cloak and build a nuclear missile. So ghosts can launch nuclear missiles, and I'm going to read it from the description here. Nuke, once you launch it, takes 14 seconds to land, and they deal 300 damage plus 200 damage to structures to a large radius. So pretty cool, very exciting when people actually use nukes. Typically pro players won't get a lot of damage with them done because there's a little red dot that shows up. Alright, so Ghost basic abilities, they do 10 damage and they do 20 damage to light units. So Ghosts are not actually that bad against a lot of Zerglings or even Zealots, I guess. And then also for units, or for abilities, they have steady targeting, or called snipe. So aiming for 1.43 seconds while not taking damage, the Ghost fires a sniper round dealing 130 damage. That's a lot. That's a lot of damage right there. But that's the thing, not taking damage. So if the Ghost it gets hit by a fungal or takes damage from any other enemy units during that 1.43 seconds, it will not fire that sniper round. So, yeah, I don't, sniper, steady targeting, it still typically goes off in games. So, especially if you have a bunch of them and you're just holding down shift and RRR, I can't target my own units, but I do love the pew pew of Ghosts. Another ability that the Ghosts have is an EMP round, which creates an electromagnetic pulse that does 100 damage to shields and energy of all units in the targeted area. So EMP does not do actual damage, but it will get rid of energy from units like Vipers and High Templar and Infestors and Banshees, and it will reveal cloaked units like Dark Templar. So EMP is very, very useful, especially against High Templar when you're going up against a Protoss with Storm. And cloaked units hit by EMP are revealed for a short time. Awesome. So EMP, very useful round, or useful ability. And then its last ability is Cloak. So you do have to research Cloak at the Ghost Academy, but once you have that and you go into their enemy base, then you can launch that nuke. Like we said, 14 seconds, and it does about 500 damage to structures and 200 to units. Pretty freaking exciting, because the radius is rather large. I like it. It's always pretty exciting when people pull out nukes. Okay, that wraps up your Barracks. Again, Barracks Tech Lab, Barracks Reactor, Barracks Tech Lab. Cool. Moving on to the factory. The first unit we have are Hellions. Hellions are... Where are my Hellions? Right here. All right. Also called Fire Cars. They're pretty fun. They do splash damage, 8 damage and 14 versus light units, so Zerglings. And they do it in a straight line, but once you have an armory, they can actually transform into Hellbats. And now they do 18 damage. And then there's also an upgrade called Infernal Preigniter, or really called Blue Flame. Improves the Hellions' Infernal Flamethrower to plus 5 damage versus light units, and the Hellbats Napalm Spray to deal 12 damage versus light units. So let's go ahead and upgrade that, and we can see what the difference is between those two. Again, Hellion is 8 and 14 versus light, and a Hellbat is straight up 18 damage, and it's got a smaller radius for its shot versus a Hellion, which is like a straight line. Cool. So once we upgrade Blue Flame here, we'll get back to that. Next up is Widow Mines. We've got Widow Mines over here. And again, with the factory, if you have a reactor on the factory, you can build 2 at a time Hellions, Widow Mines, and now Cyclones. That's a recent patch upgrade that you don't need a tech lab to build a Cyclone. We'll get to those in a second. For the factory, with a tech lab, you get all the upgrades available, and you can now build a siege tank and a Thor once you have an armory. Siege tank does not require an armory, a Thor does. All right, Blue Flame is finished, and now with the Hellion, it just boosted its verse light damage, and then with the Napalm Spray, that just went from 18 damage flat to 30 damage versus light. So if you're gonna make Hellbats, yeah, you're gonna want that Blue Flame upgrade. That is significant. Plus 12 damage versus light. That's actually pretty huge. Okay. All right, Widow Mines. Widow Mines burrow, and their mine does 125 damage to their primary target, and if it's a Protoss target, it'll do plus 35 to shields, and 40 splash damage to nearby units. The cool thing about that, the splash damage, is that probes are 40 hit points, and so are drones. So any Zerg or Protoss worker hit by the splash damage will unalive. They will be dead. So I love Widow Mines against Protoss worker probes. It's exciting. It's pretty good. So 125 damage to the primary target is good enough to kill a lot of units as well. So Widow Mines are great. When they're burrowed, they are cloaked, and if you have an armory, they stay cloaked. even after they fire. Because when they fire, they will be revealed while they are recharging, and they do recharge. I don't know how fast they recharge, but it does take them cooldown, 29 seconds. There it is. 29 seconds to recharge a Widowmine. And right there, you can see the radius of how far it can shoot. And let's say this was a group of probes right there. If this Widowmine was targeted onto this SCV, pretty much all of these guys would be dead. It would be great, excellent fireworks. I like it. All right, moving on from the factory units, we do have the Cyclone, which did get a rework in the newest patch. Cyclones can shoot air and ground units for 11 damage and 14 versus mechanical. And now they have an ability called Lock On, and it allows the Cyclone to lock onto a target and shoot at it while it's moving. Once it does lock on and break lock off, there is no cooldown for lock on again. So that's a recent balance change, and it did reduce the range of the lock on. So at the normal firing weapon range, it's only 6, but the lock on range is 9. So if that target is moving away, it's 3 units of range, whatever that looks like, that'll stay locked onto and keep firing and keep doing damage. So Cyclone's not bad. Not bad after the new balance patch. They do have a speed upgrade here at the factory tech lab called Hurricane Thrusters. Cool. All right, so we'll upgrade that. And then the Widowmines do have a burrow and unburrow speed upgrade. We'll get that here as well. You do need the armory to unlock this upgrade. Cool. And then the last upgrade here at the tech lab is for Hellions, Hellbats, Vikings, and Thors that let them transform quickly between their different modes. Hellions, Hellbat, Hellion mode. Vikings can go from assault mode to fighter mode, basically ground versus air for the Vikings. And then the Thor has their high impact mode versus javelin missile. Splash damage versus a single target damage for Thors. We'll get into that in just a second. So that's a pretty cool upgrade. I do like that. We'll upgrade that once we touch the Vikings, just to show you the speed difference that causes, because it is a very neat upgrade. Next in the factory, we have the siege tank. And also, if you hover over each unit here, it tells you how much it costs, how much supply it costs, the build time, and then basically it's just like general description. Heavy tank can switch into siege mode to provide long-range artillery support. Sweet. Cool. What does that mean? It means that tanks can switch between this mode and this mode and do a ton of damage when they're in their siege mode. This is a ground versus ground heavy armored mechanical unit. When it's not in siege mode, it'll do 15 damage and then 25 damage to armored. And when it's in siege mode, it'll do a whopping 70 damage to armored and 40 damage to non-armored light units or untagged units, which are like queens, I think. Also, the range is 13. I think it's the longest range unit in the game. It shoots farther than it can see. It is that long. So in the fog of war out here somewhere, if the tank is here, it will be able to see like out to here, but it would be able to shoot out to like here. So you really want some Medivacs or Vikings to give you that vision, or you keep scanning from the orbital command, which is right here. It's as good a time as any to talk about the orbital command, because when you start out, you have a command center, and then you can upgrade it to the orbital command. And what does that do for you? It gives you these 3 abilities. You can drop mules to mine minerals faster. Cool. So these suckers will mine about 225 minerals during their lifespan, and they can also repair units. So kind of cool. Another ability at the orbital command is calling down extra supply. So 1 supply depot gives you 8 supply. If you call down supply, that's not what I meant to do. If you call down supply, it'll give you an additional 8 supply on this super depot. And then the other ability that I used was Scanner Sweep, which will show you anywhere in the map at any time through the fog of war your enemy's base and cloaked units. Very cool. Very cool. So if you're getting attacked by DTs or banshees or lurkers, let's say, lurkers outside your base, you're going to want to scan so you can see your lurkers and the tanks can wallop them away. Pretty cool. That is an orbital command. The other building that a command center can transfer into after you have an eBay is a planetary fortress. So this sucker will defend itself against ground units, and it does 40 damage and a little bit of splash damage as well to other units. Has a range of 6, and yeah, so it can mine minerals to your base, builds SCVs, but it also can shoot with this huge freaking Ibex cannon. Cool. You can actually upgrade the range here in the eBay with high sec auto tracking. Adds +1 range to missile turrets, auto turrets, and planetary fortress. And while we're here, the other upgrade here is building armor or neo steel armor. Upgrades the armor structures by 2, increases the cargo space of bunkers by 2, and provides extra cargo space for command centers and planetary fortresses. So what that means is if you're getting attacked and you want to save your SCVs, you can load 5 in there, and then I think you can load like 8 once you have building armor here. We'll get that one, and we will get that one as well. Also here at the eBay, you have +1 attack for infantry weapons and +1 armor. So the Marine and the Marauder and the Ghost and the Reaper, this is where you're going to upgrade their attack and armor upgrades, and it'll just be like incremental. It goes +1, +2, +3. +3 is a max. Very important to get your upgrades throughout the game. And yes, you are going to usually build 2 eBays eventually. Maybe not both right at the same time, but you'll get there. All right, let's go back to the factory. I think that's where we left off here. And we covered the tank. We covered the Hellbat basically up here. And the last one we have is the Thor. Now, Thor is, I think, the first unit that we're talking about that has 2 different attacks. In his normal mode right here, he has a air-to-air attack and a ground-to-ground attack, and they're different. He can do both of them at the same time, and they do different damage. So the Javelin missile launchers here is his ground-to-air attack, and it does 6 damage and 12 to light units. So that is good against Phoenix and Mutalisks. Very good against Mutalisks. And I think even Banshees are light. Yes, they are. Okay, so, you know, Thor is probably not the best unit against Banshees. You're fine with just, you know, a couple missile turrets or Marines, but whatever. So, and then in his secondary mode, the air attack changes, but the ground attack does not. So his normal fixed ground attack is Thor's Hammer. It's 30 damage. It's pretty good. It's actually pretty good. It's actually 60 damage because it says their attacks too. So it kind of just shoots twice for 30 damage at the same time. There's like a slight delay. I'll show you here. So you can see him shooting twice. Each of those shots is 30 damage. So yeah, not bad. But his air attack, like we said, his first one is 12 versus light and some splash damage. But if you change over here to high impact payload, activates Thor's 250mm Punisher cannons, and it does single target damage for a higher amount and longer range, slightly longer range. The splash damage mode is 10, and high impact mode is now 11, and it does 25 damage and 30 damage to massive units. That's going to be your Tempest, your Carrier, your Battle Cruiser, and your Broodlord, and also your Mothership. I think those are your only air massive units. So if you see a bunch of those, Thors, not a bad idea. They're good still against light air units because of that longer range, and just because Thor has 400 frickin' health, so it's kind of hard to kill those dudes. Phoenix, Mutalisks, whatever. Thor in any mode is going to be a decent choice, actually, but especially against those massive units like Battlecruisers and Carriers and Broodlords. As long as they have enough ground support with them, like you don't want Thors just out there alone, but if they got some Marines and stuff with them, that's going to be a good idea. Thors and Hellions and Hellbats actually are a good combo. So yeah, Fire and Thors, cool. Yeah, that wraps it up for factory units. Factory units get their upgrades from the armory, and it's kind of consolidated the armor upgrades into one upgrade. So you got air and ground units getting their upgrade from the ship plating, and then ground weapons and air weapons. Now with ground weapons, if you research +1 ground weapons, it doesn't add just 1 +1 damage for certain units. It'll actually do +5 for tanks. So the tanks will actually go to 75 from 70 for just +1. So if you get +3 attack with your tanks, it's actually going to be 85 damage versus armored, which is very significant. That's a lot of damage. I'm not quite sure what the increment is for Hellions and all the other units, but just know that upgrades are good. Upgrades are good, guys. So that's what you got at the armory. Cool. Okay, moving on to air units. You're going to build your air units out of the Starport. And we've got a Starport with a reactor. And we've got a Starport with a tech lab. Again, the reactor will allow you to build 2 Vikings, 2 Medivacs, or 2 Liberators at the same time. And then the tech lab will allow you to build the more advanced units from the Starport, which is the Raven, the Banshee, and the Battlecruiser. And it also allows you to build upgrades from the tech lab. So we've got Cloak for the Banshees, we've got Banshee Speed, and they just changed this recently. You need to upgrade the interference matrix for the Ravens. It needs to be upgraded. It's only 50-50 and takes 57 seconds, so do not forget this upgrade if you're a Raven builder. Raven's interference matrix is very good in Terran versus Terran to disable your enemy's tanks. So we're going to get that, and we're going to talk about the Raven right away. So the Raven is a spellcaster. It does not have any attacking abilities on its own, just has armor, and it has these 3 abilities. It has a auto turret which defends itself. It's a little turret here. And the turret does 18 damage, but it only lasts for 7 seconds or really short time. It's pretty good against killing workers. You'll fly it behind the mineral line here, drop it right here, and kill a bunch of your enemy workers. Not bad. And then right before the fight starts, if you throw down some auto turrets, probably a good idea. The second ability the Raven has is an anti-armor missile, which will splash damage, sort of, -2 armor to every unit affected. It is a pretty wide radius that it shoots that. Let's see if I can gather up a bunch of units here and shoot one. I don't think I can actually. I can shoot my own unit with this. So all these units now have -2 armor temporarily. So yes, it's -1 armor. So it's basically like +2 attack against any of these units that are painted orange with the anti-armor. So right before a fight starts, anti-armor, great idea, especially against a ton of like zealots or stalkers or ground units, hydras or zerglings, I guess, you know. Right before a fight starts, excellent ability to use. Especially if your army has a high fire rate, like Marines. Marines have a very high fire rate, so every time they fire, that +2 or -2 armor really compounds. It really does. And then lastly, the third ability that the Raven has is the interference matrix. It disables any mechanical or psionic unit. Any psionic unit for 11 seconds. So what's a psionic unit? It's Queens, Infestors, High Templar, Archons. People don't know that Archons are actually psionic, so you can just disable them, turn them off completely, and Archons will just be big glowy balls not doing anything at all. But mostly you see it against tanks. And I would say 90% of interference matrices are against tanks or Colossus, probably. I can't use it against my own units, so we don't get to see that. Again, spellcasters are a little bit hard to control, so it definitely takes some practice. But don't forget to upgrade interference matrix at the Starport Tech Lab. Okay? That's very important. You're going to lose games over that, all right? So back to the Starport units, we've got Vikings. Vikings are an air-to-air unit. Let's see these guys. Let's upgrade that smart servos so we can see them land a little bit quicker. So in this mode, they are an air-to-air unit. They do have a nice long range of 9. That's pretty solid. We've already got upgraded +1, so +1 air weapons. So we're doing decent damage, and they do bonus damage to armored units. So that's good against battle cruisers. And yeah, they're great for vision when you have a bunch of tanks. So fly these bad boys out to extend your tank's range a little bit. And let's see, this is fighter mode, and then in assault mode, they land and they have these sick Gatling guns that do good damage against normal units, but they also do bonus damage to mechanical units. They will two-shot probes. Probes are mechanical, so are SCVs. So just land a couple of these in your enemy mineral line, and you can kill quite a few workers. Pretty good. Generally, they're not great at fighting army versus army in this ground mode, but if there's nothing else for them to shoot at in the air, go ahead and land these suckers. One of the cool things about Vikings is that they can shoot Colossus. Colossus are a ground unit, but they're so tall that Vikings can just shoot the tall Colossus. Pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, that was smart servos. So now we can see how fast these suckers land in transition. Pretty good. And then we can also see these guys change too, and then thors. Cool. So smart servos increases the rate at which they change their mode. Yeah, okay. Moving on to Starport units again. Medivacs. Medivacs got a little bit of a change in the last patch. Okay, so Medivacs do not attack, but you can load units into them and drop units on enemy bases. This is like a huge strength of the Terran army is their mobility. Loading up a bunch of Marines and Marauders into Medivacs is like a basic strategy of most all Terrans. So you just grab a bunch of Marines and load them on it. Cool. And then also they can heal these units. So when you use stim, take some life off, but the Medivacs will heal them back to life. Pretty cool. So Medivacs also have a boost ability, increases their movement speed for 6 seconds. Very good to boost into your enemy's base and drop, or load up and boost out, depending on the situation. And then they recently got an upgrade in the fusion core. So this is an advanced building. The Medivac had a upgrade that nobody used, and now they used this, or they changed it to this upgrade that increases the energy regeneration rate of the Medivac by 100%. So this is definitely a late game upgrade to get, and I haven't seen it in too many pro matches yet, but if you're fighting a lot and your units are, if you don't have that many Medivacs and the Medivacs are running out of energy, this would be an upgrade that you get. I've seen it occasionally. So, yeah, that's there. And let's see. Okay, Liberators. Liberators are pretty cool. They've got another upgrade here at the Fusion Core, which we'll get. Increases the range of the Liberator's Defender mode by 3. Now, that's a huge deal. Ranged Liberators are amazing against Protoss, and I would say also against Zerg. You don't see them too much in Terran versus Terran, but let's get that upgrade, and here are your Liberators. So they do have an air-to-air attack, and they really don't do a ton of damage. Yeah, they don't do a ton of damage, but it is a slight amount of splash damage. Decent against Mutalisks, but that's about it. Maybe they're decent against Vikings if you have like 8 or more Liberators and you get close enough to the Vikings that they're decent. They're okay, but they're way better at air to ground with this unit right, or this ability right here, which is their defender mode. So their defender mode is much like a siege tank. Now these guys are immobile, and they're doing 80 damage with that +1 we got. So I think it's 75 base damage. But if you get +2 attack Liberators, they will 2-shot Stalkers, the Protoss Stalkers. So getting Liberators with range, which just went from 10 to 13, +2 and range Liberators are very, very deadly against a Protoss opponent. Liberators, awesome. Next up here in the Starport lineup, we've already talked about the Raven, which is also a detector. Base ability, passive ability is a detector for the Raven. So they will detect your enemies' cloaked ghosts and Dark Templar and lurkers and any burrowed units that Zerg might have. So yeah, pretty nice over there. All right, Banshees. All right, let's go to Banshees. Tactical strike aircraft. It's only a air-to-ground unit here. And they do have that speed upgrade, which we did get. And they do have cloak. So again, they're only an air-to-ground unit. And really, the strategy of Banshees is to get them out early and sneaky. Because once your opponent scouts that you're making Banshees, they're pretty easily countered by any air unit that can shoot them down, or just by building, say, queens or static defense or detectors. They do a decent amount of damage. It's 12 damage, plus it does 2 attacks, so it's really 24 damage. But mostly you see these used to kill workers early in the game. You'll go Barracks, Factory, Starport, Tech Lab, get a Banshee, get Cloak, and the Banshees will try to kill as many workers early on in the game as they can. And then finally, we've got the Battlecruiser. So for a Battlecruiser, you're going to need a Starport with a Tech Lab and a Fusion Core. And from that Fusion Core, you're going to want to upgrade the Yamato Cannon, which Let's upgrade it. Blast a single target with devastating plasma cannon, causing 240 damage. So that's a pretty good amount of damage for one shot. It does take some time to charge up that cannon. So if you're fighting a bunch of Hydralisks, it's probably not a good idea to use that Yamato cannon. You probably just want to use its base attack and then tactical jump out of there, which is a cool ability. Whoop! Yeah. The best thing about that ability is you don't need vision. You can just tack jump into the fog of war. So some Terrans like to just rush a battlecruiser and then tack jump instantly to the enemy's base. Not a bad idea. And much like the Thor, a battlecruiser actually has two different attacks based on if it's shooting air-to-air or air-to-ground. The air-to-ground damage actually does more than its air-to-air attack. It's 8 damage, and it shoots very, very quickly. 8 damage, and it can shoot while moving as well. So it can just float around here, and it will attack the biggest threat target that it can reach. I like killing drones and probes. I don't use it against Protoss, but I do like rushing battlecruisers against Zerg. And then we do have the Yamato cannon ability finished. So, sorry, Liberator. Enough said. That's the battlecruiser. Okay, I think we've covered mostly everything. We've got the Barracks, Factory, Starport. We have engineering bays for infantry units. We have armories for Factory and Starport upgrades. We've got the Fusion Core, and we have the Ghost Academy. Other special buildings we have are the Bunker, which you can load Marines, Marauders, Ghosts, and Reapers into. A bunker will increase the range of each of those units by 1 and protect them. It's kind of like a static shield, but yeah, bunkers. Once you build an eBay, you can build missile turrets as well. Missile turrets are static defense against air units, and they're also detectors. So if you're going up against Lurkers or Dark Templar or Banshees, you're going to want a few missile turrets. They do a decent amount of damage against air units as well. That's 12 times the 2 attack, so really 24. And we did upgrade that high-sec auto tracking, so it has a range of 8. It's pretty solid, actually. It's not bad. And yes, there is a little guy in there. Little guy in the missile turret. He's just permanently in there and getting dizzy. But he doesn't cost any supply, and neither does the bunker. And I think that brings us to our last building, which is the sensor tower. You need an engineering bay to build a sensor tower, and it'll build this little range, and it'll show any enemy units within this circle range that are in the fog of war. So it's really good for defending and seeing enemy movements within this circle on the minimap. So you can just quick scan, see what's there, or go ahead and attack what's out there. The bad thing is about these, the enemy also sees this ring on the minimap, so they know that you know that there's units out there. So just, be aware of that. It's fine. Keep building these, especially at your 3rd base and maybe your 4th base. So you just have more map awareness, I guess. It's very important against, it's important against all races, but mostly against TVT, to see if people are sieging up tanks at your 3rd base or something. I guess that's it, except for the most important unit, I guess, is the worker, is the space construction vehicle, the SCV. SAVs build everything that you make. They mine your minerals. They can repair your mechanical units. You really want to keep these guys alive. But yeah, they build everything. They can attack a little bit. They do 5 damage, but attack very, very slowly. One unique ability about workers is that if you have them all selected, they can walk through other units as long as they're going to minerals. So if I've got all these guys blocking, like these guys on hold position, and I select these guys, and I right-click on some minerals, they will walk right through these guys. No other units do that, so just be aware that that exists. If you're being attacked, if your workers are being attacked and you want to get them awake very, very quickly, select them and then right-click on some minerals, and they will walk right through friendly and enemy units. This is a very, very important feature to get your workers out to safety. I think that is it. I think I've talked about every single Terran unit, building, and ability. If I haven't, I'm sorry. Leave it in the comments below. Hey, you missed this. I know in my last series when I did this, like 2 years ago, I forgot about Archons. I totally missed Protoss Archons. And, you know what? Sorry. Did my best. I tried. But I think we got it all for the Terran units. Thanks for watching. I hope this is very helpful. Like, follow, subscribe. Watch me on Twitch. Same name, Prometheum. I am a very sporadic streamer with my flight schedule, so catch me when you can. Otherwise, I'll try to start cranking out some really good YouTube content this year. I do have the Stormgate beta, which I'll start playing this week. And once we're able to, I will release content on Stormgate, another real-time strategy game from the original programmers, original creators of StarCraft 2 and StarCraft 1. Awesome. I will see you next time. Good luck. Have fun.